A catastrophic plane crash caused by a single burned-out light bulb is hard to comprehend. It's even more difficult to explain why months after the wreckage was cleared, the dead crew members returned to their posts. On December 29, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 was making its final approach into Miami. The routine flight hit a snag when a landing gear indicator light failed to activate. Convinced the gear itself was stuck, the flight crew locked their attention onto the instrument panel to diagnose the glitch. With all eyes fixed on the faulty bulb, the crew failed to notice the autopilot had disengaged. A minor mechanical error became an unmonitored, deadly descent. Without a single alarm sounding in the cockpit, the aircraft slammed into the Florida Everglades. 101 people died in the impact. Facing massive financial losses after the disaster, the airline sent recovery teams into the swamp to retrieve components that had survived the crash. These salvaged parts were tested, certified for service, and installed into other aircraft across the Eastern Airlines fleet. This financial recovery strategy effectively seeded the airline's active fleet with the physical remnants of the disaster. Weeks later, during a routine flight on a different aircraft, a flight attendant noticed a passenger who seemed out of place. A man in an older aviation uniform sat motionless in the cabin, ignoring her questions. As she watched, he vanished into thin air. When she later reviewed staff records, she identified the man from a photograph. It was Captain Bob Loft, the pilot who had died in the Everglades weeks earlier. Similar reports soon began flooding in from across the company, describing impossible encounters with the dead crew. These accounts came from highly trained, rational professionals, pilots, flight engineers, and senior crew members whose jobs depended on accurate observation. The sightings specifically featured two men, Captain Bob Loft and flight engineer Don Repo. Witnesses described the apparitions actively checking systems and verbally warning the living crews about faulty parts to prevent another crash. Airline management was forced to confront a growing crisis as their most reliable employees insisted on the reality of these encounters. An internal investigation eventually uncovered a specific, data-driven link between the sightings. Every aircraft associated with a haunting shared one specific detail. It had been fitted with salvaged hardware from the Flight 401 wreckage. The anomaly was tethered directly to the hardware, following the repurposed metal wherever it was installed. Recognizing a potential legal and operational disaster, the airline executives moved to purge the fleet of the salvaged components. Mechanics received undocumented, verbal orders to strip every piece of Flight 401 salvage from the fleet and replace it with new equipment. The operation was carried out with total discretion. No public statements were made, and no official records of the mass removal were ever released. By treating a supernatural event as a physical recall, the corporation's actions lent a terrifying weight to the claims of its crew. As soon as the last salvaged part was removed, the sightings of Captain Loft and Don Repo stopped permanently. Standard theories suggest these men were hallucinations born from collective grief and the extreme stress of working in a dangerous industry after a tragedy. But if it was only a psychological trick, why did the visions track so perfectly with the presence of specific airplane parts? And why did the ghosts vanish the moment the metal was gone?